Good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. Welcome to today's IEA's Big IDEAs distinguished speaker series. Before we start, let me thank Ambassador Jose Ignacio Wert for helping us to get our very, very distinguished speaker today. And also let me thank Ambassador Brian Pontifex for opening the doors of the Austrian embassy for the IEA. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. As you know, I think you are familiar, I think we had 9 distinguished speakers, Rebecca, if I am not wrong here, the former presidents, CEOs, top thinkers, to tell us in a very informal way how they see the global energy landscape, global politics which can have an influence on the energy landscape from their perspective, and to discuss with us, with our colleagues in an informal way, a couple of issues that are important for the IEA family, for our colleagues here. So, Mrs. Ana Palacio is, I think many of you know Ana very well. She's a formidable person. You will see in a minute, if you don't know her, in a couple of minutes, what I mean. And Ambassador laughs already because he knows Ana very well. She was the first foreign minister, the female foreign minister of Spain. And she put her stamp on the Spanish foreign policy. She is the board member of many important companies, worked with the World Bank. She was a member of the European Parliament, and she is currently a member of the Spanish State Council. She is one of the very few speakers in the world, as far as I know her, who can bring the energy and the geopolitics together and provide a perspective. We are very fortunate to have Ana with us today, and if you see her in many different panels, speeches, events, she's always the star and pushes her agenda, her views in a very strong way. And therefore, we thought it is excellent to have Ana with us today. So please, let's give a warm welcome to Madam Ana Palacio for coming here today. So how we are going to have the format is that Madame Palacio agreed to give some remarks, how she sees the current energy situation, or whatever thought she has. I have a couple of questions in my mind, but then we will turn to the floor. If you have questions for Ana, she's able to answer any type of questions, energy, and the only thing I think, Ana, you cannot answer is about Spanish football, which I will ask Ambassador to answer, of course, these questions. So may I now turn to you, Ana, to give us some opening remarks for today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Executive Director. Thank you, ambassadors, and thank you all for being here. You know, it's really, for me, it's heartening to see all of you here today. I mean, to be called by a force of nature, as Fatih Birol is, just someone, it's a bit challenging because probably, I mean, it will be difficult to live up to this presentation. What is clear is that, you know, I'm Spanish, I'm passionate. What I believe, and I say it. And I must say...
Here we go, by the way, it's starting.
So, I must say that you have raised with football one of the lacunas that I discovered when I was in foreign policy. I remember once I went to the Gulf and I see my counterpart, and you know, as the first woman foreign minister, I have been told you cannot show the soul, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. I was quite stiff, and he received me in a very informal kind of American way by reciting a set of names. I thought, oh, what is this? What is this? Until I discovered that he was reciting the alineación of the Real Madrid. So since then, I discovered that you cannot be in foreign policy without being proficient, or at least having some basic knowledge about football. Now, I mean, we are here to speak about energy, but I think that, I wouldn't be not true to myself and true to your expectation if I did not say a couple of words about what's going on in Spain. Short, 3 comments. The first is on perception. Sunday, the perception in the media, mostly, but our opinion in the international is made by what we see in the media. In Spain, it's different because we know, we have relatives, we have friends, we know. But in the media was about police brutality. And this is something that we have to acknowledge. What hasn't been translated by the media is that this was absolutely exceptional. Today, I think there are 2 people in hospital, one of them because he had a heart attack, which, you know, it's as all this, anything that has, we as citizens, as European citizens, Spanish citizens, we have all the regret about what has happened in some cases. But these were exceptional situations, and by the way, the police had a mandate not from the government, but from the judiciary. The judiciary had taken these decisions, and the police was acting as judiciary police, not as what has been said. So this is my first thing. Perception is there, and this is something that Spain and the government of Spain will have to address. Second comment on legal. How many, maybe of you, some of you, have called me, Anna, why don't you let them vote as the Scottish, as the Brits did with Scotland? Because we can't. Under our constitution, it is not possible. It is not possible under the present constitution. This would need a change of constitution that is not a simple one, because as everywhere, as it was said by the High Court of Canada, or as it has been said in the context of Scotland, this kind of decisions need super reinforced majorities, and our Spanish constitution is not different in that you need a super majority to change certain fundamental aspects of our national compact, which is the constitution. Third, on what's going on socially. Well, I think that this could bring us to many comments, and I'm happy to take any question. But what I will say today is that Spain managed a transition that was as unexpected as it was full of blessings for the country, for the economy, for the growth of the citizens. And what we are confronted now, for 40 plus years, we have been growing in this bashing, in this fantastic success of the transition. So all what has happened in Catalonia has to be put in this context. In my short hand comment is that this is a big challenge. It is a big challenge for Spanish society, for Spanish authorities, for Spanish institutions. We have to see what part of just decentralization is connected, in particular the education, the media, decentralization, and we have to accept that there is a big challenge confronted with us, that we cannot go on living on the on the success of the transition. Spain is now confronted with a big challenge, and it just interpellates all of us. Thank you for letting me, but I think that I couldn't just be here. Now, let me just 2 words about the agency. We are today addressing energy security, which is the underpinning of the creation of this agency. But the thing is that energy security, when this agency was created in '74, was about managing oil stocks. And today, the 2 words have changed. Energy is not what it used to be, and frankly, security is not what it used to be. And what is fantastic, and on this, I must congratulate Fatih Birol and all the team of the agency, because you have positioned the agency at the center of the heart of the debate of 2 major streams, is the role of data and of information, and the prospective vision. It was said, and I have been on the scaffoldings of the European Union for many, many years. And frankly, I went into politics because of Europe. So, but many times, even in Europe, where we were the first to understand that the environment and the energy were not two separate areas, but that they were absolutely intertwined. Something that our American friends took a long time, and frankly, it's due to President Obama and to a common friend of, I'm sure, many of you, Secretary Moniz, to bring these 2 streams of policy together. But many times, we are concerned about today. In Europe, we are trying to solve the problems of today. We muddle through in addressing these issues. And frankly, energy security is about tomorrow. It's about the day after tomorrow. And this is why, and I'm paraphrasing The Economist, in a world where data and information are the real tools, the basic tools, this agency has a central role to play. Now, I don't want to take much more, but let me say, why did I say energy is not what it used to be, and frankly, security is not what it used to be? First, in security, there is a certain difference of perception. I spoke about perceptions before, and perceptions is fundamental. Today, security gives gravitas. You say food security, if you want to bring this to the attention. You speak about cybersecurity. Security is not what it used to be. Security was something connected with defense. Today, security is a broad area that in the end might be connected with the nation, with the state, with collective defense, but embraces a big different areas. And of course, in this area, energy is fundamental. Energy is fundamental because today energy is openly, it used to be, and we may speak about that, but openly one of the big drivers of security in terms of supply, but also in terms of sustainability, but also in terms of affordability, all this. So this is where we are. This is why this agency, and I'm very happy that Brazil joined the agency. This is great news for everybody, because in today's world, what we know is that from each man for himself in trying to get security of supply of oil, and just being together in this agency to organize that after the first oil shock, that there is some commonality, and we don't compete against each other, the founding members of the agency, in addressing this security of oil supply. Today, what we know is that this is interrelations, it is interdependence, and therefore this agency is playing a role that its founders did not foresee. But of course, in '74, we could not imagine the world we are living today.
Thank you very much, Anna. This is a very good start for a good discussion. Now, many of you may know that Anna is a strong advocate for a good cooperation, a good ally, United States and Europe. We have been pushing this many years. And these days, when we look at the energy issues, do you see that the cooperation working together between United States and Europe is at a level that you would like to see as somebody who put a lot of time, effort, and sweat in this issue?
Well, I remember when I discussed with Secretary Foreman. These were the days where we would do the TTIP, the transatlantic, whatever. I mean, the trade agreement between the European Union and the United States. We would do it in a tank of gas. Again, gas was present there. And I told him, why don't you have a chapter on energy? In those days, remember, there was a, it was forbidden to export LNG, for instance. United States was still inward-looking. This took all the Obama two administrations and the effort, I will mention him, of an enlightened Secretary of Energy, to understand that United States had to play a coordinated and interrelated role, had a role to play there. And of course, in the European Union, we cannot just limit our relationship to energy, but it is true that when we speak about the transatlantic relationship, we sometimes stay to what is very important. We share principles and values, but then you have to put meat on it. And meat on it is just addressing the big challenges that today are global challenges, and among them, the challenge of energy. Now, United States is at the forefront of one of the breaking through areas in energy, which is IT. I mean, research, what the United States had done with shale, it has changed has changed the market of oil and gas. And this is something where, we need a better dialogue. Not that we are going, we know that in Europe, and this for many reasons that go from legal, of the structure of the legal property, and there are a few great colleagues of mine from the legal field. Property, you are at Celum et Infernos in the United States, no, which helps in doing this, but we are not in my backyard. So in those issues, we need a good dialogue for us to learn about certain pragmatism. Frankly, on other issues, the European Union has been at the forefront of this environment policy. We did not succeed in Copenhagen, but what we agreed in Paris, which is, honestly, I'm very proud as a European, not as a lawyer, because this is not legally binding, and this would have been, but it is a realistic. It's an agreement for tomorrow. It's an agreement where you have all the different actors, not just states, but also private actors, but also international institutions, but also NGOs, all working together in an area where we need. And frankly, this was also, in great part, transatlantic relationship. We didn't play in the forefront. And yes, I will agree with my American friends that they were instrumental to convince India. China, I think it's a different thing, but okay, I give them. I'm one of the believers that United States is the indispensable nation still today. And frankly, what I'm concerned, and with this I finish this, although this is a very interesting area, is that United States is playing protectionist in a world of energy where we need to have global solutions and global approaches. It's very concerning that after having been at the forefront of this big opening that Paris was, we see United States retrenching. I wrote recently an article on the agreement with Iran. This is fundamental. It is fundamental for, of course, for geostrategic reasons. It is fundamental for all of us if the United States withdraws. So if I could summarize, I think the United States still is, because for lack of anyone else to taking this role, still is the indispensable nation. And what I think is that when the United States has played with the European Union in areas like this bringing together energy and environment, we have the Paris Agreement. Today, I'm really concerned about the policy. And I know my American friends say, well, one thing is the president, the other thing is the administration. Honestly, the presidency of the United States of America is one of the key institutions of the international world order, so concern.
Thank you very much for this, Anna. Now, let me move to a bit Europe first and then the Middle East. Now, in Europe, energy security is very important. We believe at this as the International Energy Agency, very important oil, but also gas security in Europe. When you look at the European gas markets today, do you believe that gas security is still an issue in Europe, or should it be for the policymakers in Europe, gas security an issue after what we have seen in the last decade or so?
Well, first, when you speak gas security, and of course saying this in this context is a bit pretentious, but we cannot forget that gas security is electricity security, and that if there is a correlation, this correlation is about prosperity and power consumption. So this is the background. I mean, in Europe there is always room for improvement. On the positive area is that this correlation is perfectly understood. This correlation between gas being the backup for this push of in power, in electricity, this push of renewables, of intermittent renewables. The backup has to be gas. And this has been well understood at the policy level. Now, another issue that is important is this energy union. The backbone, the regulatory backbone of the energy union is on the table. And through this marriage, and this, I'm a convinced European, so through this marriage between environment and energy, what we have got is that we have been able to overcome some of the limitations that Article 194 of the Treaty of the Amsterdam Treaty, the Treaty of the European Union, has in the area of energy. Energy, although it was one of the first areas of collaboration, and Euratom is an area, and you know, the coal and steel, there was a lot of energy behind it, was an area that was in the realm of member states, among other issues, because of the public utilities, public prices, and we can discuss, or regulated prices and all that. We didn't have a real market, so the internal market just is trying to move into the energy security, and of course, nothing is in Europe. This is not in Europe. So I think that I would mention this as the second big thing. The first is this presence of the two drivers of this, this understanding of the role that gas plays in a policy that has bet on intermittent renewables, which, you know, the big breakthrough that would change energy and probably your agency and everybody is if we would discover, just build a storage system that just is workable, equivalent to base load electricity, which today we don't, except, and there is a lot of just this pumping water to just bring it back. So this would be the second. What else is important? I think that we have done certain steps forward in the area of regionalization. We haven't reached grids, connections, interconnections. If we mean it, if we understand that we are interconnected, how come that we are not better interconnected? Spain is a case in point, because Spain and the Baltics were the most, the Iberic Peninsula, Spain and Portugal and the Baltics, we were isolated. By the way, this explains why Spain was pioneer in LNG terminals. Spain has today 40%, almost 40% of the capacity of the European Union in LNG terminals, which was a decision like the French decision to go for nuclear. These were policy decisions linked to this security, energy security and security of supply. But I think that these are the positive. On the negative, that these interconnections are not sufficient, that we need to really work, that we need to overcome, that we need to, I think, to address the competition law in Europe. I mean, clearly, gas pipelines are not cheap. You cannot build them if you don't have long-term contracts. Those long-term contracts create other barriers of entry to the market, and there the European Union has to manage these two areas. So we need incentives to create the infrastructures. As I said about the agency, not for today. Today there is a glut of gas, and there is in Spain, and I think in many countries in Europe, there is an overcapacity in terms of electricity. So we don't see this, but there are moments, and normally these moments come with anticyclones in winter, and it's cold everywhere, and the wind doesn't flow anywhere, and then we all have, and we don't have a market, which means that there is a rigidity of the demand curve. And we need to address this in terms of security, of energy security. And this is important to be addressed. So there are other areas, but I would say that these, for me, are the most evident.
Thank you very much, Anna. I mean, we have, as agency, first of all, we think gas security is very important. And as you rightly mentioned today, there may be a lot of gas, but we see many challenges. We have seen Russia-Ukraine issues recently, and what happened with Qatar, LNG, and so on. And also same for oil markets, lots of oil, but you never know what happens. We have seen in the United States the Harvey, the hurricane there. As my colleague Mr. Sadomani says, we have to save it for the rainy day. We don't know, not every day may be very, very sunny. Now, let me move to Middle East. I mean, we know Middle East is heart of the oil industry and also lots of gas coming from there. Do you think that the geopolitical developments in Middle East today, tomorrow, could have any impact on the global energy markets? Should we keep an eye what is going on in some key Middle East countries? How do you see the situation there?
Well, I mean, not today, no, not tomorrow, today. Well, here, I mean, we could speak for hours, but if I will try to synthesize, the first thing that we have today, the big change, is the withdrawal of the United States. And by the way, it's not just President Trump, because we blame President Trump of many things, and frankly, in my opinion, rightly so. Not the United States, the President Trump. But this was Obama's policy, to withdraw from the, and by the way, one of the good things about this, this just creating the circumstances where the United States could withdraw was the agreement with Iran, which I think is the best you can get, a realistic best you can get, 2 point whatever, I mean, today's world agreements, which is not the international public law, and some of my colleagues here would just wink at me saying this, because I have always been a proponent of international public law. But you know, today you have actors that are not states that are absolutely relevant, so you have to find other approaches. This agreement was an example, and I think it was a good thing, and we need to keep it. But what has happened with the withdrawal? The first thing is that states there, well, just started to or took an approach of this is free area to enlarge my influences. And on this, of course, I will mention Iran in the first place, but if we see Syria or we see Yemen, it's clear that this is one of the important issues here, and frankly, linked to the withdrawal of the United States. The second issue, frankly, to call a cat, is the presence, military, economic, political, of Russia, which for us Europeans and for energy, it's fundamental, and not just because of the Leviathans or because of the Zoras fields that have been discovered, which change also the equation there, and Syria is a case in point, but because of geostrategic relations between Russia, the European Union, in the region. And then, frankly, I think that there is something you have hinted at, and I want to mention it. Infrastructures for oil and gas, for extraction, are expensive and take a long time, and take a lot of effort in maintaining them. What we are seeing, by the way, this is not just there. In Algeria, we see that, is that infrastructures are not up to the circumstances. And these weak governments that we see in many places, not to go, but of course, what we are seeing in Kurdistan, what we are seeing in Iraq, is that this creates a question mark in the supply from these countries. A question mark for today, but more so a question mark for tomorrow. So this.
Thank you very much. Just it means we really have to continue to keep an eye on the Middle East, what is going there. And thank you very much for sharing your thoughts as a very prominent former foreign minister. Now, let me go from the politics to energy one more time, and then I will go to our colleagues if they have any questions to you. Anna, as you know, there are many different energy technologies, renewables, coal, gas, efficiency, and others. And there is one technology which some countries think it is a good idea to make use of that, and some countries think it is not good, which is the nuclear power. Exactly, nuclear power. So this is, I wanted to, we as the agency, we are all of the above technologies organization. We look all the technologies from a clinical perspective, and of course countries are free to use whatever technology they use. But you have a lot of experience in this field. You were in the board of different companies. How do you see the nuclear technology? Do we still need nuclear power, or shall we leave it aside, or shall we build more? What are your views on that?
Well, first of all, with this introduction, I have to stress, to make a confession, I have a nuclear past, which today is, I think, in certain places in Europe is among the worst thing you can say. You have a nuclear past. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And frankly, of course, I understand what nuclear has of different from other technologies is that you are playing with fears that are in our reptilian brain. So the eternity, what will you do with the spent fuel, and then we have had the two big, and in particular Fukushima, because before Fukushima, everybody understood that this was a problem of maintenance, of surveillance. Fukushima was a different thing, and this allowed, and this is more than natural. My take there is more pragmatic. When people say, you are for, and this is kind of insult, you are for nuclear, well, yes, I mean, I think that you cannot exclude nuclear. I think that we have to be pragmatic about nuclear. I understand politically Chancellor Merkel took a decision about, just withdrawing from nuclear. This was a political decision. I won't judge it, because in politics, that's a different field. But economically, it didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. For a country like Spain, we just decided the closure of Garoña, one of our earliest centrals, but that technologically they had all the blessings of all the authorities. And this was also a decision. I think that in Europe, we cannot have the cake and eat it. If we want competitiveness, we need to be realistic about baseload energy that is there, that we have paid for the big investment, because as we all know, a nuclear reactor, it's extremely costly to build, but then it's very cheap. I think that we should be pragmatic, and some are. The Finnish are. France used to be, at least. I don't know today, but used to be. I hope that the Brits, notwithstanding that Brexit will mean in this nuclear area, the Euratom and all what is the collective safety and security about nuclear, but I hope that they will go forward with Hinkley Point. Now, one last comment. I think that maybe we should, we should follow closely what is going on in the United States, because in the world, China is right now under construction or under advanced planning, 100 reactors, more or less. So the technology is there. Does it make sense that we give up our expertise in a technology that is there in the world? I don't think so. As I say, the United States that went through a very anti-nuclear approach, I see right now that there is a coming back with certain differences, is that they are going for modular reactors, which in terms of safety and security present advantages, and we should explore that. I mean, France has this technology, absolutely, because this in the end is the technology of nuclear submarines, so you have it. There are other technologies with thorium and other approaches, but I frankly think that from a geostrategic perspective, from the future perspective, it doesn't make sense for Europe to withdraw. I mean, yes, to go for renewables. We have been there, we were the first, all this, but this is not in contradiction to keep the competitiveness advantages and to be present in the world in one of the forefront technologies technologies that there is.
Thank you very much, Anna. Now, let me turn to the floor. If you have any questions, I ask very easy questions, Middle East, nuclear power, US administration. So if you have some tough questions for Anna, who would like to start? Mr. Lafont, Pascal?
It's working. Thank you very much, Fatih. Thank you very much, Minister, for your very good words about public international law. I happen to be a fellow lawyer, and I was touched by the faith you have in the multilateral system and treaties and other instruments. If I may take you back to your introductory remarks on Catalonia, I would appreciate your views as a convinced European, as you said, on the impact of these claims for more sovereignty, whether it is in Flanders in Belgium, whether it is in Catalonia, whether it is in Scotland, or the parts of Europe. We saw Kurdistan, you mentioned it a moment ago. Your views on 2 points, if I may. First, how do you see Europe develop with more claims for breaking up current countries? And the second point would be your views on the role of youth. There are many young people here in this room. We saw on TV, whether it's in Barcelona or other cities, many youth at the forefront of a claim for independence. As far as I'm concerned, this is not the ideas I had of youth, which I saw as people with wanted to break down barriers, not erecting them. I would like your views as a Spanish politician, but also as a European on these two issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pascal. Anna, if you agree, we get a couple of questions and you answer them. Pascal is our Chief Legal Counsel, so then I move to Madam Ambassador.
Thank you very much and good morning. My name is Annika Markovic and I'm the Swedish ambassador to the OECD and to IEA. Thank you very much for a very interesting dialogue between the two of you, and I think you really gave a good perspective of both our energy challenges and the geopolitics of energy. And of course I would be interested to hear more about the prospects for European closer collaboration in this area, because Europe is also very dear to my heart. But I'm going to ask another question, and it goes back to the fact that Sweden, my Minister of Energy, is going to chair the next ministerial meeting of the IEA in just 1 month and a little bit. So my question is, what would be your advice to the incoming chair of the ministerial, looking forward? The IEA put it in the future, on energy security, on, of course, renewables, a very important part of the work of the IEA as well. Some advice from you, Madam, and I promise I can transfer it immediately to my minister, who will be here in just 1 month. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. Before going to Mr. Ambassador, just to tell you, Anna, to put in a context the very question of Madam Ambassador, every 2 years we have a ministerial meeting. Last one was chaired by Secretary Moniz. This one will be chaired by Minister Baylan, with about some 30 ministers across the world, many CEOs, and Minister Baylan is very keen to have a successful ministerial, which we are supporting. So, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you very much. I'm José Ignacio Verde, Spanish ambassador to the OECD. Well, Anna claimed that it was hard to live to the expectations created by Fatih, and well, obviously she delivered, not only to that expectations, but much more to that. And Fatih also said that I'm more knowledgeable about football than about energy, which is, well, I'm more or less the same level of lack of knowledge in both fields. Although, I mean, I can't compare my knowledge on energy to Anna's, and I can't compare my knowledge on football to Fatih's, so I'm in a very uncomfortable territory. And of course, I want to thank Anna for very wise comments on the situation. I have been addressing a number of info and comments to my colleagues, ambassadors, on the situation, and Anna pointed at a very, very, very specific and really what you can see that on the media. I mean, the headlines have always been the supposed police brutality because of a perfectly unchecked number of supposedly hard people and so on and so forth. And then you see that the Catalan government is talking about almost 1,000 hurt or injured and just 2 people in hospital. So, I mean, it's some kind of balance and contrast that is badly needed to really grasp the real situation. Well, but back to energy. I had in mind number of questions, and Fatih was just spoiling them in his successive question. But mainly, the point is, as Anna quite rightly said, the situation now is so much different from that of 1974 when the agency was created, and even the meaning of the term security is so different because, I mean, the positions of the country has so much variety. But there's also a factor that probably needs a bit more of elaboration by Anna, which is the impact of not of energy technology, but technology at large. I mean, the impact of digitalization on the energy, basically on one aspect that is very much intertwined with security, which is efficiency. And this leads me also to a point, I think, well, Anna pointed out it quite clearly, about the insufficiency of the European policy on energy. I'm talking basically about interconnections, but also, I mean, more broadly, about some common policy orientations that would be especially necessary in a situation like this, which the threats are so different. I mean, Russia was not an issue on this just, say, 5 years ago or something like that. The situation in the MENA region was quite different, not only in terms of security, but also in terms of geopolitical. So my point is, for Anna, to what extent do you think that the European Union should have a more decisive role in really framing an European energy policy?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. So, Anna, we have 3 questions from our legal counsel. I think he has 2 questions, and Madam Ambassador from Sweden, and Mr. Ambassador.
Well, allow me to start by the very concrete question of Ambassador Vert, then go to my colleague, because being the General Counsel of, being the General Counsel of an international organization is something I know a bit of, and it's challenging. It's really challenging. And then I will go to Madam Ambassador. I mean, of course, to Ambassador Vert's question. If we take gas, security is about different providers and different origins. And Ambassador Vert has addressed one issue, which is the interconnections. Today we don't have them, but what is more challenging is how are we planning to have LNG backup? As I said, in Spain, we built the very early LNG because of the lack of connections. We have, and this has been improved, but we are still at ridiculous levels of interconnections with France in terms of electricity or in terms of gas. And if we want Europe, we need to go forward. Of course, I fully agree. And if we want Europe, we really need to analyze what Nord Stream 2 means. To what extent we will have TAP and TANAP and the Caspian, and we need Caspian, and we need Algeria, and we need LNG, and yes, we need Russia. But what we cannot is just have an overwhelming dominance of any of these areas, among other things, because we won't have investments to just create or just invest in the other energy. So yes, historical, the European Union, we cannot ask, the European Union does what it does, but we are coming from where we are coming, and in terms of energy, these were highly centralized public companies in all our member states with regulated prices. So to go from there to the market, it's a long way, and I think that we are taking steps. Would I like to have France, not to name anyone, just being more proactive in these interconnections with the Iberic Peninsula? Of course. Would I think that the big priority investments of the European Union have to be more attuned with the reality in order to allow investments in this area? Of course. So yes, but at the same time, we cannot just blame the European Union, because the European Union, in the end, is member states. I go to the question of Monsieur Lafont. I agree with you. I don't have faith. I wish I could have faith in international law. I don't have faith. I think that we live in a different world that is very different from the post-World War II that just helped us create this architecture of rules and institutions that has been a big benefit for the world. And because I don't have faith, I think that we have to keep them, to make them prosper as the agency. I consider the agency part of this architecture, but also to have them evolve. And again, your agency is a good example. And today, the instrument of international treaties, you have to find a way to incorporate other actors. And this is where I think that Paris, although it's messy, it's complex, it's, it's pinned on the enforceability that is just blame and shame. It's an instrument, and we have to use it. Now, I go to your, on what Catalonia is. Catalonia, of course, has very Spanish roots on the economics, on history, on our recent history of the decentralization of education, among other things, mainly, and the abuse, frankly, to call a cat, abuse by the Catalan authorities of in certain areas, like, for instance, media and education. You mentioned other nationalist, regional, or movements. I think that there is a bigger European malady that, by the way, is a Western malady. Is a mix of because I think that Trump, in a way, is also a manifestation of this. It's the disconcert of citizens that the compact between the governed and the government and the governed doesn't just give back, or it's a perception that it doesn't work, and there is this distance. And we may say that it's wrong, but this is also created by these new technologies, by these echo chambers where people live and and we have to address it as politicians, as citizens. We have to address that. In Europe, this is coupled with this idea that the world doesn't belong to us, that the future doesn't belong to us. If there is a common response about Europeans is that nobody is certain that my kids, my grandkids, will live better than us, which in Europe it's a first. I mean, there has been such a success, and this is also true in Spain. So, yes, there is a malaise. I think that we have seen different manifestations. So this tension manifests itself in different ways. Brexit is another manifestation of this tension between this lack of trust, this lack of confidence, the Geert Wilders or Marine Le Pen. And we thought that with Emmanuel Macron, and I think that we have to go in a deeper analysis, and Alternative für Deutschland and the results, all this has to give us thought. What am I saying by this is that there are nationalist identitarian movements that address this identitarianism in a geographical way, in a historical way, that this manifests itself, but the root is the same. We need to tell Europeans the future is not only ours. Europe has left this dominant, but this is a new world where we have our say, and we have our say in terms of patents and in terms of research and in terms, frankly, of principles, of legal principles, of rule of law. And this is, again, one of the issues that is playing in the background. Do we respect rules and institutions, or we don't? If we do respect rules and institutions, we have to say that the referendum in Catalonia was absolutely illegal, and that the reaction by the judges, by the justice, that were, I insist, the ones that appeal to the police to act, is within this construction of the rule of law. You asked me about Europe, European Union. What is the European Union? Again, the European Union, we have this community method, and I can plead guilty of another big sin. I was one of the mothers of the ill-fated constitution. I was the member of the 12 members presidium that thought that this was a constitution. Why? Because this goes beyond an international treaty. And we thought we need to tell the European citizens. Of course, you saw that the member states came back and said, no, this is little changes in an international treaty. It was the same text, exactly the same text, only the presentation changed. Why was this successful? Why citizens bought this? Because in the end, member states are there. So to go from this general comment to what you asked me, what is the role of the European institutions here? Well, I think that the declaration by the European Commission yesterday was very clear. We are in a community, and everybody speaks with everybody else, and I think that these conversations will be fruitful. But this is a Spanish constitutional issue, and we Spaniards, we need to confront this. We need to confront this from the security and, frankly, the challenge, but also the security that there is there. And I say it as a member of the transition generation. There is a new generation there. There is King Felipe generation. This is their challenge. And, you know, Spain has gone in history from just being a laggard and following and all that to being at the forefront. And I think that because this is the symptom of a malaise that is common to all our old countries and all our old cultures, what will happen in Spain, hopefully, will be a driver to address them. Because what we cannot go on is just patching. And now I come to the Swedish ambassador. Ambassador, allow me. I don't dare to just give advice. But I will tell you something that, I mean, I'm not a classical feminist, but I think that one of the issues where Sweden is a leader is in this issue that women integrating energy, women, young women are integrated. You see more and more engineers in companies and more responsibles, but yet it is mostly a man-led world. You have there a role that is, I think, and you have done it extremely well, and Anna Lindh was a dear friend, and Wallström is another dear friend. I think that you are full of strong women that can tell all, not just also what we used to call in the former days middle-income countries, where girls have to be told that of course they will be engineers, and of course they will be on a platform, of course they will be measuring and just driving pipelines, and of course they will be CEOs of the big companies. Of course they will. And there, I think, not giving your minister an advice on other issues, but they're just highlighting what you have done.
It's an excellent idea, Anna. And before I go to Polish ambassador, let me tell you that I think the Swedish minister fully shares your view, and one of the side events we have our minister is about we have a new initiative, Women in Energy, and also within the IEA we have a gender diversity program run by Claire, by Rebecca. Well, Laura is also there. So we want to have more women in the IEA, but the challenge is the pool of women is less than men because of where they come from, especially in the energy. When you go to environment, it's a different picture, but energy is a bit more challenging. It is the reason why Mr. Minister decided to put it in the agenda of our ministerial meeting. Mr. Ambassador.
Well, let me just say that I didn't know, but this is, well, because honestly, and I think that this is the right approach, I'm absolutely against quotas. I think that the worst thing for a woman is if people think she is there because she's a woman. No, I'm there because, I can compete with anyone. In equal terms, of course, prioritize the hiring of a woman. But I think this is fundamentally telling girls that yes, they can, that yes, they will be engineers in a platform, and that yes, they will be CEOs. Energy, and you are right in making the difference there, just while environment has been very feminine, because this was La Pachamama and this was Earth. I mean, no, it's like these fears of nuclear. These are very fundamental issues. In the moment you are choosing a career, it's easier to go there. But what we need to tell is, girls, notwithstanding Larry Summers, that I was the best in mathematics, the best, and I'm not an engineer because of circumstances, but that they can, that there are not brains of men that are better, that a woman can go anywhere. And yes, I think that we need, so welcome this initiative, and Ambassador, if I can contribute in any way, and of course you have a good level of collaborators that are excellent and happen to be women.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Anna. I will come to that issue a few hours later, as we discussed, asking your support. Now, we are about to come to the end of our program, but first, Ambassador of Poland, please.
Madam Minister, I would like you to discuss this interlink which you touched between technology and energy. You illustrated this on the case of nuclear energy, that Europe or some European countries have developed engineering and physical capacities to develop such projects, and we are giving up to China. And maybe we are so optimistic, saying that since we need energy in the field of renewables, we will have technological response. So are you so optimistic saying that we can give up improving nuclear technology and it does not offer to European industries any comparative advantage, and we will go towards, hope that there will be some technological breakthrough and reliable renewable energy at low costs and no environmental damages?
May I just, because you are the Polish ambassador, and because you are Polish or because you are Spanish, your question is very well put and I will respond it, but you have reminded me that we haven't mentioned coal. We haven't. And coal is there and well and alive, and I think that in speaking with the Polish ambassador, I will have to mention that coal is one of these areas where technology is just making important steps forward, and that in the medium term, even gas is a transition, long-term transition. In the medium term, because of decarbonization, coal is a challenge, but coal is there. And we have also to be realistic. Frankly, today, Germany is relying a lot on coal, and not the cleanest one, by the way, coming from the most, in this picture. So first thing, now on technology. Well, I'm an optimist by nature, so I think we will see breakthroughs, and we will see storage of intermittent energy. And this day, the day we really can storage intermittent energy, the picture will change. But what we cannot is bet our investments, our programming, to a breakthrough that we don't know when it will happen. And what we know is that since this breakthrough will be marketable, will be ready for industry exploitation, there is a period here, and we need to address this period. This is why I mentioned the new technologies in nuclear and this modular approach that doesn't represent such huge billions of euros investments, and that are there and are, because of the political events, we don't have this fusion ready. Super Phoenix, as those among you that are French, Super Phoenix was a program, French program, that was stopped because of governmental arrangements with the Greens in those days. This is another area of exploration, and what I insist, and I think, Ambassador, that you agree with me, is that Europeans, we cannot not be present in this dialogue, which is a world dialogue. It's not just for us. Well, I think that this is, before you close, thank you to the Austrian ambassador. This is a great place, and thank you for hosting us.
So, Ambassador Pontifex was very kind to open the doors of this place to us. Of course, we paid for that. So thank you very much. So I always tell the truth. So I think you all will have a chance to have a chat with Madame Palacio outside when we have a drink, and especially I encourage the ladies in the energy field to talk with Madame Palacio, and in my view, to get inspirations from her. I think also the Spanish ambassador, he is very modest. He said, I know football better than him. No, I think, as you know, he's a very strong supporter of Barcelona. And, pardon, Real Madrid, I made a mistake here. So I would like to thank all of you coming here. I am sure you enjoy Madame Palacio's remarks. They were not indirect, as you have, I'm sure, seen, very clear. And thank you very much, Anna, being with us here today. We consider you as a friend of International Energy Agency. Thank you very much for coming here. Please, let's thank Anna all together.
Let me say that I'm a friend and an admirer of what you are doing and considers this institution fundamental for this sound, realistic approach to the future of energy security.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So let's have a drink outside of this room, please. Thank you.